Please rise for the flag salute.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Would the city recorder please call roll?
Mayor Reeves is absent. Councilor Boland.
Here.
Councilor Furlow.
Here.
Councilor Gristle.
Here.
Councilor Reeskamp.
Here.
Councilor Stouter.
Here.
Councilor Steinhebel.
Here.
Thank you. First up, we have the consent calendar. The following consent calendar items are considered routine and will be enacted by one motion. There will not be separate discussion of these items unless the councilor so requests. In this case, the item will be removed from the consent calendar and considered separately. Tonight we have tonight's agenda, bid authorization for the Sherman Street Waterline Replacement Program or project, board minutes for the Library Advisory Committee and Planning Commission, and council minutes from December 11th, 2019.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the consent calendar. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. And next up, we have a presentation for the 2018-19 Water and Wastewater Treatment Plan Annual Report by Ron Whitlatch, Interim City Manager, and Engineering Director Jeff Houchen.
So I'm going to let Jeff take the presentation. This is the annual report from Jacobs on the operations section for, I believe, mostly just the wastewater plant in this case, since we've taken the water plant. So with that, I'll let Jeff give you his spiel.
All right. Good evening, Council. Thank you for your time tonight. So wrap up on the wastewater plant. I just want to give you a few highlights. So we treated over 1.37 billion gallons of water. A little bit different way of looking at that is, so up at Green Peter Foster Dam, on an average, they let loose about 2,589 cubic feet of water per second. At that rate, it would take us 40 days to process that much water. I couldn't give you how many miles of water that is, but that's a lot of water. We spent almost over 2,000 hours doing preventive and corrective maintenance. That's almost one full-time employee equivalent. We had a tour of 37 wastewater operators that was attending a school in Albany. We were happy to have them come by and look at our plant. And one major construction project we had was we replaced a 1970s vintage screw auger that transfers some waste from one of the screen systems and upgrade that with a much more efficient model. And as Ron mentioned, we're not operating the water plant anymore, but what we did operate till April, we produced 573 million gallons of water and had 834 man-hours in corrective and preventive maintenance work orders. One standing event that we did have, we had an audit by the drinking water folks, the Oregon Health Authority, and the water plant was awarded a Outstanding Performer Award, which means we were in perfect compliance for that year, and that was the first time that we've achieved that status. And if we were to continue to operate the water plant, that would have extended our audits from 3 years up to 5 years. We were pretty proud of that. If you have any questions about the report, I'd be happy to answer them.
Any questions from council?
Short and sweet, just like I promised, Ron.
Thank you, Jeff. Appreciate it.
Thank you, Council.
Thank you, Jeff.
All right, now it's time for public comments. Citizens may address the council by filling out a testimony comment card prior to speaking and hand it to the city recorder. Each citizen is provided up to 5 minutes to provide comments to the council. The council may take an additional 2 minutes to respond. City recorder will accept and distribute written comments at a speaker's request. We have one card tonight so far. It's Cassie Cruz.
Shocking.
I know. Well, I thought about skipping out and going to the open mic night, but I figured you guys are cool. I'd hang out. So what we had going on, I wanted to touch on some old business before I kind of moved on what had happened within December. So I wanted to kind of let everybody know that we had about 20 volunteers overall for that Jingle Bell Run that we had that helped the Special Olympics raise funds for their athletes to travel throughout Oregon. And 11 of those volunteers helped the day of. And I don't have like a year-end report for you. I'm getting that together now. But right now, the hourly rate for volunteers is like $25.43. So those volunteers each worked about 3 hours the day of the event. So we've just had a huge return on our investment in volunteerism, just from what I have seen, which is excellent. Having Dela no longer with us on our board, we felt the ache. She brings so much strength to whatever organization she helps with. But we've had so many community members step up and help out with different organized events that we've put on. So I kind of wanted to touch on that with you guys. And so I wanted to say just a huge thank you, because the Comp Northwest is always there and rises to the occasion. They're med students, which is phenomenal. We had the Mystic Rainbow Girls 98, which is a youth organization out at the 2nd Street Masonic Lodge. They came out and helped just kind of guided but runners, I should say. And cheered them on and everything else. So just a huge shout out, thank you to them. So I want to touch on that, and then kind of moving forward, our promotions committee has put together a steering committee for our different concert events we have throughout the summer. So we have people who have joined that steering committee are Bill Anton, and he's owner of the Mid Valley Productions. We have Rochelle and Matt Cowart, which are owners of Conversion Brewing. We have John Opal, who's owner of Johnny O Promotions. And then we have artist Jonathan Sterling, and then, of course, our promotions chair for the LDA, Yvette Meyer. So we have amazing people who are now seeing our concerts move forward, making sure we have great acts, and we're getting the best pricing for the people coming into. And then kind of moving on from that, because they're still in the midst of working on it, so we'll have more as we go. Our design committee, we finally, after all the illnesses, which is amazing, they judged the windows downtown, because that took forever to happen. But I just have to do a huge shout out to our judges, which were people from the Lebanon Arts Commission, which were Sherry Speaks and Vanessa Smith. And then we also had Denise Downer, who's part of our design committee. So, and then I myself stood in because one of our judges were sick. So I just a huge thank you to them for helping out with that. And to let you know, if you do not follow us on Facebook yet, which you all should, but the winners this year were for the best decorated was Habitat for Humanity. And then imagine this, but the Lynn County Arts Guild won best for paint. And then People's Choice, as I said last month, which was the MBVA building. So excellent job that everyone put forth. It was a great month. I'm looking forward to getting you guys numbers for the entire year. Even with a Main Street manager at 10 hours, we still got a lot accomplished, and a lot of it was just because of volunteerism from our community members. So I look forward to sharing that with you. But that's really all I have. So thank you. Any questions? Excellent.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Cassie.
I'm just going to wait for the train.
I'm going to sing a little number while we're waiting.
Knock yourself out. Oh, no.
Way to go.
Okay. Next up, we have the public hearing for the amendment to Development Code Floodplain Ordinance, Planning File 19-11-64. It is now open at 6:08 p.m., and we'll have Kelly Hart give her report.
Thank you. Good evening. So before you tonight is an ordinance to amend the city's floodplain ordinance. So as a brief overview, FEMA sets the National Floodplain Insurance Program so that if you follow FEMA's rules, then properties within floodplains are able to get insurance and also develop within insurance, but you have to follow their rules. They recently amended their rules. So the Oregon State Legislature directed DLCD to draft a model ordinance for cities to adopt, which would comply with FEMA's new sets of rules and regulations in order to participate in that program. The DLCD created that model ordinance, and after reviewing our ordinance that currently exists, this model ordinance, it was the direction of DLCD to just simply swap them out instead of trying to do a line-by-line change. And so the ordinance before you tonight is basically the model ordinance that was drafted by DLCD, which is FEMA. And by passing and adopting this ordinance, it will allow all of the properties within the city of
Are there maps to show what those floodplains are?
There are. Yes, we have those available at the city.
Okay.
If anybody's interested.
Any other?
Have we had recent losses as a result of the ordinance?
Recent losses?
Yeah,
Not that I
I don't think so.
Kelly, your microphone is not on.
Come on, there we go.
Any other questions from council of staff? Is there anyone who'd like to speak in favor of this amendment? Seeing none, any who'd like to speak in opposition? We'll close the public hearing at 6:10 p.m. Public hearing is now closed. All further discussion will be limited to council and staff at this time. Is there any council discussion? If not, we'll have the city attorney read the ordinance.
Maybe.
What? Ordinance Bill number 2020-01, ordinance number 2941, a bill for an ordinance amending section 16.11.070 of the Lebanon Municipal Code concerning updating the floodplain ordinance to comply with new state model ordinance.
Call for a motion.
Move to approve?
Second. I have a motion second to approve. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Motion carries. Next, we have a public hearing for the amendment to the Development Code Public Notification Planning File 19-10-59. It's now open at 6:11 p.m. and we'll have Kelly give her report on this.
Thank you again. So this item is largely a cleanup item within our code. Oregon state law requires certain public notification procedures for different types of hearings. For quasi-judicial hearings, it does not require circulation and publication within a newspaper. However, our code does stipulate that it must be published within a newspaper within 14 days of the public hearing. It's kind of duplication of efforts and not required per state law. So to streamline our processing purposes and the application review period process, we are recommending an ordinance that would modify the development code to remove the regulations for newspaper notification for the quasi-judicial hearing. And that would simply follow the Oregon state law requirements. And we also put in a reference within the amendment language that if there are any changes to Oregon regulations, that we would follow the statutes identified within the law. So that's the crux of the ordinance. The recommended action is to adopt ordinance number 2942. That concludes my report. I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Council have any questions of staff? Is there anyone present who would like to speak in favor? Seeing none, any present who would like to speak in opposition? And we will hereby close the public hearing at 6:13 p.m. All further discussion is limited to council and staff at this time. Any further discussion from council? If not, we'll have city attorney read the ordinance.
Ordinance number 2020-02, ordinance number 2942, a bill for an ordinance amending the City of Lebanon Development Code regarding newspaper publication requirements.
Move to approve?
Okay.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the ordinance. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you, Kelly. All right, we'll move into regular session. And item number 3, adoption of the City of Lebanon's capital improvement plan for 2020 to 2025, presented by Ron Whitlatch.
Thank you, City Council. What we have before you tonight is our capital improvement plan and a corresponding resolution for a proposed resolution for approval. The capital improvement plan is a 5-year snapshot. We look at a 5-year window, what's out there, what's coming. We don't always get it right. I mean, there's things that happen in between, where priorities take over. But this just gives us a snapshot. A lot of granting agencies will require that you have a capital improvement plan. DEQ loan funding requires that. So that's the main reason for having the plan. You can see it's about $62 million worth of capital improvements. Not to worry, we're going to have a bake sale and make that up. No, it's not a realistic goal, but there's things in there. You put the numbers out there, and they kind of are what they are. And as we get grants, as things come up, we can go through them. I'm not going to go through the entire document. I know you just got it tonight, but it is just capital. We're not bound by anything in this document. other than the fact that it is a guiding for budgetary purposes as we start our budgeting process. Probably the easiest way to look at it is on page 11, and that gives you a snapshot of the projects that we stuck into it, what fiscal years we're planning to pull the trigger on some of these projects, and where the funding lies. You can see, like for your parks, right now probably our number one biggest thing is Cheetah Lake Regional Park. Well, that's 99% grant funds. We don't have $4 million sitting there to do that. Same with some of these others. We did put the new city hall in there as just a placeholder. We threw $10 million at it. Is the money there? No, it's not there. Same thing moving on to your drainage. Right now we're in the middle of a master plan update, and that's progressing forward. We've got some priority drainage projects in there, one being Cedar Drive, Ralston and Harmony is another one, and Garvard. Those are all on dry wells. So those are priorities out there. But with the amount of revenue we generate with our storm drainage utility, it takes a long time to get there with these. So transportation, another big one. We've got the street preservation program. We get about anywhere from $190,000 to $200,000 a year from the state on surface transportation funds. So whether we spend all that in 1 year or whether we compile it and do it in 3 years and make a bigger project out of it, we've got a long list of streets that need repair, so that's what that's used for. Also, same thing with bridge maintenance. We get reports from the state on updates that we need to do our bridge. You can see the Walker Road rebuild in there. That's going to be part of the West Side Interceptor project. We'll probably put a little bit of money from streets to that. And then moving on, a lot of these are URD projects. You look at the only one that's not would be like the Dewey Street realignment. But the rest of them would fall in the, except for 7th Street, would fall into the URD category that's already been programmed into the North Gateway URD. Wastewater is the big one. You see starting in fiscal year 21-22, we're looking at probably $7.76 million. We have been approved by DEQ for the loan. We do not have the loan. We've still got some more hoops that we have to jump through. That's to the tune of $14 million. We've also requested funds from the state legislature to help supplement this a little bit, and so we'll see how that works out. We won't have anything to report on that, but all in all, we've got really close to that amount right there. If the DEQ loan, if all the financial stuff works out, we're really close to that number there. Biosolids at the wastewater plant, that's probably our next big project. Headworks, and then a water. You see we put the old water treatment plant in there to demolish that or whatever we decide to do with that property over there. Obviously it's going to have to be demoed from probably a liability reason, regardless of what we do with the property at some point. It's just a matter of getting the time to do it. And then the rest is primarily main replacements. And there still are a few projects out at the water treatment plant that were things that we're adding back in that we took out during construction just to make sure we got to the mark on that. So we're adding some of the things in that weren't quite necessity but will help in the ease of operation. So that's kind of a snapshot on that, on what the projects are. And if you've thumbed through it, these give a little bit more detail on what the projects are. But keep in mind, this is 30,000 foot planning. We don't have any design to this. It's just looking at it and going, all right, what are our needs that we know of? And tomorrow that might change. That's why we try and update this every year. Although I looked back and it's been 2 years since we've updated, so I know we're slacking a little bit. So we'll get on that. But I can answer any questions you've got on it if you have any questions. But other than that, I would recommend that you approve the resolution.
Any questions for staff? All right, I'll ask the city attorney to read the ordinance. Resolution, excuse me.
Resolution number 2020-01, resolution adopting the City of Lebanon's capital improvement plan for 2020 through 2025.
Move for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve resolution number 2020-01. All those in favor, say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. And number 4, amending Lebanon Municipal Code, Chapter 6.14.010, 6.14.020, and 6.14.030 of the Lebanon Muni Code relating to dangerous dogs. Trey Kennedy.
Thank you. I'm going to do a little bit of a introduction and then also turn it over to Chief Stevenson. Really, these were fairly minor amendments, but that's going to make the chief's job not necessarily easier, but probably more appropriate, where appeals are going to spend more time with the judge and not with the chief. Just to highlight a couple of the things that we changed. We changed the definition of director to be the chief of police or any designee, as opposed to, sorry, let me get to it, as opposed to, somebody that had to be appointed by the council. I don't know why that was in there to begin with. So it's the chief of police or a designee. And then we gave a little bit of discretion. We added some language related to if there's unique circumstances that exist, that gives the chief a little bit more leeway. Things can happen. In other words, it's not always black and white. So when circumstances justify it, the chief, or ultimately on an appeal, the municipal judge could have the discretion to make classifications based on those unique circumstances. Other than that, and sending the appeals ultimately to the court as opposed to just to the chief, I think those are the major the changes that were made to this ordinance. I'll turn it over to the chief, though, as those were made mainly because at the request of the police department.
Yeah, so this has been kind of an ongoing thing with dogs within the city that are running at large and happen to come across and kill a domesticated companion animal, or in certain situations, even was written in there to where if a dog wasn't even in its own backyard and a domesticated cat jumped in that dog's backyard, we could deem that dog as a dangerous dog. And if it was meeting the criteria of the city code, there wasn't much discretionary powers under me, and really no discretionary powers under the judge. So we euthanized that dog. And there are some things within that ordinance that I just didn't feel necessarily that were right, and I wanted to have a little bit more oversight and review of whether or not this dog is deserving of euthanization or not. A lot of the times when there are situations that have arisen and can arise, a lot of times what I will do is I will look at all the facts of the case, go out and talk to both parties that were involved and see if this can be more of a civil compromise, or if we can do something other than euthanize the dog, such as removing it and finding it a better home to where it's more suitable. But there are those cases too where we do have those dogs that unfortunately need to be euthanized to prevent the liability onto the city. So and that's really what my major things were in, to also define really what is a domesticated animal. I wanted that definition clarified as well. So with all those things, before where it stood, it was my responsibility to look at those and say I was gone for a week, then this wouldn't be addressed for a week and so forth. So I can actually assign someone to do that for me, and to also look at the case as every case should be looked at. You got to look at everything, all sides of it, and see what we can do to better the situation, not always just black and white, either euthanize or not. So hopefully I've clarified my reasoning behind wanting to change the ordinance, more of a cleanup and more of a better understanding of it for us to work with.
How many of these instances do you have in the year?
You know, it's pretty few and far between. I couldn't say on average probably about 6 a year. So, I mean, they do happen, and usually when it does happen, there's a lot of questions come up from the officers. Okay, what do we need to do here? Well, this will allow us to give a little bit more direction on what needs to happen. So they do happen, and when they have happened before, I've always looked at this and went, man, I really wish I could find some other alternative rather than to euthanize a dog who was being a dog and just needs to, be under some more guidance. We've had dogs that aren't dangerous but acted stupid, right? Or can be salvageable and saved, and I'd rather have that as an option rather than not. So that's really my main goal behind it, was just give me more discretionary powers and give the judge some other alternatives. So.
Yeah, I'd like to speak to the option of that possibility of giving that discretion here, where it says, basically to look at the unique circumstances existing, with the behavior of the dog. I can speak from experience where it was black and white, and you don't have that discretion, and that very thing, you have a cat who jumps into the backyard of a dog, and it's to no fault of the dog, and then you have those issues. So I think this is a really great addition to the city ordinance.
Yeah,
definitely.
Yeah. It's been definitely a work in progress, and it's just something that's always been there. Always something I've always wanted to look into and get cleaned up a little bit. So Trey was kind enough to do that for me.
Where do we impound the dogs?
Well, typically we impound them at our facility, but typically they go to Lynn County Dog Control. But again, it's one of those things where, as it stood before, we would have to seize this dog, and then we're responsible for the bills and everything else that come alongside that. But again, now this will give me a little bit more discretionary to decide what's the best direction to go.
All right. Thank you, Chief. We'll have the city attorney read the ordinance.
Ordinance Bill Number 2020-03, Ordinance Number 2943, a bill for an ordinance amending chapters 6.14.010, 020, 030, and I think we may have left 070 as well of the Lebanon Municipal Code relating to dangerous dogs. Trying to see. Give me 1 second. I didn't realize it until I just read that. Yes, we did make additional changes to 6.14.070, which was just some language changes from either a designee or a sworn police officer, and that's included in there as on the third page. So I think it's fine if we just want to understand that we're amending 070 as well.
So moved for approval.
Second.
It's been moved and seconded to approve the ordinance. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Motion carries. City manager's report.
Well, thank you again. I'm probably not going to go through the whole thing. Kind of give you some highlights of some of the things that we're looking at here. We had a Tyler Encode demo today with financial software for the entire, basically, City Hall. They were there for, I don't know how many hours, Brent? Yes, so they were there for a long time. We're looking at new financial software, the possibility of it. It may actually roll into more. It's the same company that did the police department's upgrade, so been impressed with them so far. So we'll see how that goes. Quick little update on the Reeves school zone. We are having trouble getting signs. The flashing signs are on back order. I've heard that they're close, but until we get them, we won't put them up. And we do have a contractor trying to chase them down. So once we get those, we'll get them up. I'll keep you posted on that. But it's been the signs, and it's kind of the same thing on the trail opening down on the south end on River Road. There's two things that are holding us up there. The developer, he's been out in the right-of-way out there for 6 months. Has had that tore up. Unfortunately, it's county right-of-way. So we don't really have a lot of jurisdiction there other than hurry. So we're waiting on that, but I did hear the other day that they did get the signs for that. So hopefully we can get that open. I know BLT is really wanting to get that open, so we're working to get that done. And then probably the last thing, we're going to kick off budget meetings next week with all the directors and start that process and
Fun.
moving it through. So with that, I can answer any questions.
I just wanted to give kudos to the police department. They had the tour or the inspection at your jail facility. Awesome. And the fact that they want to have you kind of be the poster child.
Yeah, that was actually really cool to hear. They came in and they're going to be training up some new inspectors, and they flat out said, "Can we come and use your facility as an example?" And I said, "Yeah, absolutely." So I was very pleased with that.
Good deal. Okay, any items from council?
Yeah, I do have one thing. The construction that was done behind Grocery Outlet, and they cut across South Main at Moda.
Oh, yeah.
That's kind of
Sunk.
sunk down. I've got some complaints over that. The contract.
Out in the roadway?
The patch,
Street,
yeah.
yeah, they cut across
Oh,
South
okay.
Main.
Was the power company? I'll have to look and see who did that.
Anyway, it's
Okay.
some section of it's probably dropped down 3 or 4 inches.
So that's probably pretty rough to drive on.
It is.
That's true.
That's all I have, Ron.
We can get them to patch that for sure. They've got a right-of-way permit, I'm sure.
Any additional public comments? Seeing none, we'll.
Bill Sullivan, this dog ordinance, and I talked to the council earlier about the cats, and Frank would probably live at my front door, because my 7.5-pound Yorkie, I taught her when we got her to chase cats, because we had a jillion of them. And you people know what they do to their gardens and et cetera, and so on and so forth. But she's like I am. She's getting too young to chase them anymore. But like I say, she'd be a dangerous dog according to this. I could be living at my first homestead because I taught her once we got her. Put them suckers to the go. As far as the cats, like I said before, the county won't do nothing about it. The wife and I, one particular time, we've been gone 5-6 weeks on a trip. We come home, the woodshed was full of kittens. I called them, and they said, "Well, how long have you been there?" I said, "I don't know, we've been gone," but I said, "The niece was watching, and they've been there for quite a while." "Well, they're your cats." Well, but anyway, I had to give Jason my spiel this evening.
Thank you, Bill.
You're welcome.
Any comments from press? And no additional public comments? All right, our next scheduled meeting is January 22nd. It's a noon work session. This meeting's adjourned.